Okay, I got you. I got you. Hey, Doug, how you doing?
Good. Nice to see you again. It's been a long time.
All right. Yeah. Hey, man. Last time you was on here was 2015.
Been a while.
So wait a minute, man. Are you up in Chicago area?
Chicago area, western suburbs. Proud
Oh
of it.
boy. What's it like? What's it like up there in the Windy City?
It's getting a little weird. It's kind of going left, very lefty up here. Distinct political change. Downtown seems like it's a lot different than it used to be.
Well, it seems like it already. It seems like it already was left.
But it's really going left. Like just, I used to work downtown a couple of years ago, and it had a distinctly different feel. Like I wasn't really welcome there. It was not the Chicago I grew up in. I think there's something going on in the Chicago area, a very powerful left wing upsurgence that might be politically significant in our future.
Hmm. Wow. Okay. All right. Well, tonight we're going to be talking about your book. Got it right here. Planet X, the sign of the Son of Man, and the end of the age. Doug, are we close?
Close to the end?
Yeah, close to the end.
I think so. More we see the nation versus nation, kingdom versus kingdom.
Hmm.
I think we're seeing the precursors of that now with the social struggles and the problems with the vaccine and all the problems related to the disease,
Hmm.
COVID. That's the precursor to kind of herding us into a direction they want us to go. And so we have to be concerned about that and start planning ahead about possibly having to leave the city centers and flee to the wilderness, just like they say in Revelation 12.
Hmm.
And so if you haven't built a place to go to in case of an emergency out in the wilderness away from the cities,
Hmm.
probably a good idea to do so now.
Uh, what do you say the wilderness? Where is that?
I don't know. I was thinking of the women in the wilderness in Genesis in the Revelation 12, and wilderness would basically be anywhere that's not the city.
Hmm.
I think right now the wilderness described in Revelation 12 is actually referring to really the United States, and that's where the remnant's going to flee in the end times
Hmm.
to hide from the forces of the dragon, and there'll be a place prepared for them there. And I think maybe that time is coming soon. People like Jim Baker and folks like that are beginning to prepare that as we speak. And I think they understand what's happening and are the men for the times preparing for what's about to happen.
Hmm.
My theory is that Christianity will be largely um, unable to occupy certain parts of the country. They might have to leave
Hmm.
some of the more liberal areas in the next 5 to 10 years. It might be there's something very serious coming up, like I mentioned with Chicago.
Hmm.
Distinctly different feel about it. So I actually, a couple of years ago, I started having kind of visions and just very deep feelings about this area, that there was distinctly very powerful evil forces moving into here.
Wow.
And so I still think that. And so I've been planning on moving west, probably the Ozarks area, either Missouri or Arkansas. But I
Hmm.
think the last redoubt of Christianity will probably take place
Hmm.
in the United States, if not the world.
Um, so do you feel like you have like an unction, or what do you feel is going on there?
I don't want to get too far into it because I had some very strange visions back in 2019, a couple
Hmm.
of years ago. Basically, I was visited by some powerful demons,
Whoa.
and they warned me something was coming. And I think the COVID was part of what they were warning about, even though they didn't specifically say. I believe I was under a very powerful spiritual attack. I mean, very powerful by high level people. I don't want to get into it because it's kind of weird, but it was a very interesting experience. And if you're interested in talking about offline sometime I'd be happy to discuss it with you. But I'm
Yeah.
convinced that this area is going to be taken over by the radical left and powerful satanic forces.
Okay. And so you had visions.
Yes, I did.
Hmm. And they were
It's like a waking dream. It's kind of interesting. It was like a television set kind of propped up to my left side. It was like a TV screen. And I
Hmm.
saw a couple of different things. One of which I can talk about here is it looked like there were some, for lack of a better term, evil monks uh,
Whoa.
drinking blood out of golden chalices and cursing me by name. And I was sick, very, very sick for several days before that and afterwards, for like 10 days. And then I saw a vision of Jesus up to my right, same situation. He was sitting up in heaven, and he was up there. He had he was like sitting on this pavilion. There's a step, another step to a high pavilion. He was kind of sitting on the first step. And he would look around, and it would, like this beam of light would come out of his head. It's like a white laser. And I knew in my heart he was fixing things with this thing. He would look over here and look over here, and he looked at me, and the laser went right here. And suddenly I knew all the problems I was having from these demonic forces was gone. And after that, I had no problems since that time. But maybe I was just out of it. I don't know, but it was so real. I mean, it was almost as real as you are right now. That's how real it was. So I just wanted to talk about that and mention that. Since you mentioned what's it like in Chicago, my answer is not good.
Now, I've heard a number of people talk about Missouri and the Arkansas area as being sort of last bastions of livability, I suppose one might say. Really, there's a lot of forest there and an untamed wilderness really in the middle of the country. It's kind of odd that it still exists.
Right.
So, but I mean, when you talk about, you say the west side of Chicago, basically?
All the Chicago area.
Okay.
I think the suburbs.
But hasn't Chicago pretty much been like you're describing forever? I mean, is it just getting worse? I know they got that crazy weird looking Lori Lightfoot. I don't know if she's a man or a woman. I don't know what's going on there, but it's gross. Whatever's going on with her. But
that's just part of the deal. When I was working downtown, I was working on a contract at a major healthcare provider, as it's a web developer. And when I was walking around downtown, I had this distinct feeling that I was simply not welcome there anymore. I was walking up Michigan Avenue one time, right in the middle, like around Madison, and there were gang members sitting around, glaring at me, saying, you used to never see gang members that far north. There they are hanging out right by the city central. And so when they penetrate that far, that means something's up. That means the police are not pushing back. That means they more or less own that territory. We're not talking about the south side or the west side. We're talking about right downtown, the wealthiest area of Chicago. And gang members are hanging out there, glaring at people who don't fit in.
And that would be you?
Yeah. I'm like the exact opposite of the downtown. Even though I like the downtown, I've worked on that for years.
Yeah.
I had the distinct feeling I was no longer welcome.
Wow. All right, Bob, we have on our newsmaker line tonight, Doug Elwell, talking about his book, Planet X, The Sign of the Son of Man and the End of the Age. Doug, there's a lot of things coming down from the stars, like Chinese rockets is coming down. Now we're going to have Planet X. But I know you say that you're not necessarily saying that Planet X will smash in, as being, say, smash into Earth, but it's more like maybe a debris field of some sort smashing in the Earth?
Yes, Planet X will not pass close to us, I don't think. I think it'll probably alter its orbit sufficiently to come near to us, but I don't think that it'll come smashing into us. What Planet X, it normally comes into the asteroid belt area, where it comes to its closest point to the sun. That's where the original Earth used to orbit. And then when it smashed Planet X with one of its satellites and moved it closer to the sun where it is now, Earth actually formed in the fourth position from the sun, not the third. And that's where the asteroids belt is. The asteroid belt is the debris left over from that collision. And so, but when Planet X comes back in, it actually carries a debris field before and after it. And when it comes through, probably some of those pieces of debris are actually ripped off of around its orbit around it, and are flown in all different kinds of directions. And probably when it passes by Jupiter or maybe Saturn. And so whenever Planet X comes in close to Earth, to its closest point to the sun, there's all kinds of asteroids and comets and all kinds of stuff flying over the inner solar system. That's why you have all kinds of asteroids hitting the Earth every 2,000 years or so.
Mm-hmm. So now I saw somebody in the live chat ask this question, basically, is Nibiru and Planet X the same thing?
Nibiru is the Sumerian term for Planet X. It means he who crosses. And it talks about the planet is actually something that crosses over the orbits of the outer planets, which indicates it's a long orbit which takes it out of our solar system in and out. Mm-hmm. Probably 10-to-1 ratio at least for Planet X in terms of width versus length. It's like an ellipse, which is shaped like this. Mm-hmm. It's like a long flat circle. Takes it in and out of our solar system, and so as a result, it crosses over the planet's orbits rather than being a circle around the sun. So as a result, it crosses over, and that's the term Nibiru, he who crosses over. Mm-hmm. And it's seen as a planet that actually shepherds the planets. It actually modifies the orbits and characteristics over time. And so that's why we have if you look at the planets, all of the planets from Earth on outwards, they'll have ring systems, satellites, significant axial tilts, major geographic features on um, the rocky terrestrial planets.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at Mercury and Venus actually have none of these characteristics, and so it indicates that probably the planet that came into our solar system interfered with planets as far in as Earth and possibly Mars, but didn't go in as far as Mercury and Venus, meaning and then that's a clue that probably Planet X came in as close as Earth, which would explain a lot of the anomalies of Earth, because otherwise we can't explain the axial tilt rotation rate, very rapid rotation rate, and all the existence of oceans, all the near-Earth asteroids, the comets. The Planet X theory I propose actually solves all of those questions. Mm-hmm. The fact that Mercury and Venus don't have all these characteristics indicates that they weren't interfered with, so it's kind of a proof of the existence of Planet X and how far it came into our solar system.
Mm-hmm. Rose asks this question, says, do they have aliens on Planet X?
It's possible that Planet X is actually a host of an ancient civilization, and it might even be the throne of God. Some people are saying that's actually a throne, or I don't think it's more like a military base, but it might be that much of the fighting in the inner solar system between angels and demons, if you will, is actually fighting for control of the planet and its resources. So probably the planet's ice cold and probably not very hospitable, because it spends most of its time well outside our solar system. Mm-hmm. But when it enters into the solar system, it becomes very bright, like you see there. That is a picture of Nibiru with the great wings in a central kind of that halo. That halo, and those wavy lines, by the way, are actually, that indicates water.
Yeah.
So the Sumerians knew that it was actually those great wings are actually comet tails, and the comet tails are made of water. And they apparently knew that because they drew the symbol for water to indicate this is the source of these wings and tail. Mm-hmm. So Planet X is such a huge object. It has at the bow shock of the solar wind that hits it, spreads it out to the sides and the bottom, so it looks like it actually has wings and a tail. Mm. And so all of the major depictions of the great gods of the high gods of the pantheons, they were always sky gods. They were always associated with a star, mm-hmm. and they always had these two wings and a tail. And sometimes they had what appeared to be a human being or an anthropomorphic person with a bow sitting on top of the thing. The Ahura Mazda, for example, the Persians, was actually mm-hmm. depicted that way, pretty much like that winged disc, but also mm-hmm. there was a man sitting on top of it too. You've probably seen some of those books, like by Zechariah Sitchin, That's mm-hmm. Planet. Yeah. He shows a number of instances where every time this object is depicted, it always looks like a disc with wings and a tail.
All right. Doreen says, Doug, will we see Planet X this year?
No, we won't see Planet X this year. My belief about Planet X is it actually doesn't appear until the middle of the tribulation. The reason is that it says in the sixth seal, I believe it's chapter 5, that it talks about how people are looking up into the sky and seeing the throne of God approaching, literally. I believe that's what it says in Revelation. And that's when they hide themselves under the rocks and in caves and things from the wrath of the Lamb. They're saying, there he is. They can actually see something far away in space coming towards Earth. That is a great threat to Earth. So something is in the sky that they can actually see. Mm-hmm. And it's probably the same thing as the sign of the Son of Man described in Matthew 24:30, where the sign of the Son of Man will appear and all the tribes of the earth shall mourn, meaning something that will be very, very scary appears in the sky mm-hmm. sometime during the tribulation, probably around the middle. Mm-hmm. I'm guessing right after the church is martyred, the fifth seal. Mm-hmm. You have the sixth seal, which is the judgment of the earth and the staying of the winds, while the 144,000 are marked and set aside. By the way, the only way you could stay the winds is by stopping the rotation of the earth. And how they will do that is probably there's so many asteroids striking the earth in a particular direction, probably contrary to Earth's rotation. It'll cause the Earth's mantle, or the Earth's crust, to dislodge from the mantle and actually cause it to stop or possibly even move backwards for a while. Mm. That's what stops the winds. It actually stops the rotation of Earth's crust temporarily. So there's no wind blowing in any tree or anything mm-hmm. like that.
Mm-hmm. Let me put a hypothesis past you. Matthew 24, I believe, says, so as the days of Noah, so shall it be when the Son of Man comes in. They were given in marriage. and eating and drinking. And then, but in the days of Noah, I believe there were giants. Now you talk a lot about giants yourself, but if we speed that up today, well, some people, I mean, I think Steve Quimby among them said there will actually be actual giants walking around. Other people, certainly they found enough bones in some of these old graves, but they seem to be dead. But there is one entity or group of entities that are known as giants today. It's not the military. There's not a military giant. There's not an educational giant. There's not a government giant. But there is tech giants, and everybody refers to them as tech giants. Could those possibly be? And those tech giants, Doug, seem to have control over a hell of a lot of stuff, and everybody seems to have to be obedient to them, or they will cancel you. They have a lot of power. Could it possibly be that the tech giants are the giants of today that are just really made from, because they seem to have the same kind of knowledge as the ancients did as well?
Right. What we're seeing with the tech giants, particularly Apple computers, are trying to reproduce the world before the flood. One of my theories is that the Garden of Eden was actually not only just the Garden of Trees, it was actually a garden full of what we would call computers. The description, and I believe it's Ezekiel 28, and also in the Epic of Gilgamesh, both talk about the Garden of Eden as a cave underground with these trees made of jewels. And these jewels had knowledge in them that people could access. I think what we're doing is we're reproducing the Garden of Eden, which was technological in nature. In fact, the symbol for Apple computers is actually an apple with a bite taken out of it, which should be a clue that that's what their intention is. They've taken that bite out of the apple of knowledge and they're applying it. In my opinion, the apple was actually not a real apple; it was actually knowledge, and that knowledge of technology and things like that, we are actually finishing up a many thousands of years long plan by Satan to enslave us to a technological situation where he can control us and make us do what he wants us to do, and basically enslave mankind, giving us what appears to be nice gifts, but are actually designed to enslave us. Now, regarding the giants, that is actually a form of technology too. It's genetic technology. And so what we're talking about with the giants is not just for tall and strong and fast people. Giants is about any kind of genetic manipulation, make them taller, smaller, fatter, thinner, whatever you want. Not just tall. The giants, most of them were gigantic in stature.
Would tranny be one?
A tranny?
Yeah.
A tranny would be probably genetic accidents during experimentation.
Messed up. By the way, we got a lot of people watching the show, and they said your information is very valuable, and they request you slow down a little bit, because I think you are putting out some stuff, and they want to hear every bit of it. Of course, they can watch it over, but to slow down a little bit there, and we're going to get this information out to them. All right, Azur says, Doug, can you subscribe to the opinion that Planet X is actually Jupiter?
Jupiter is a well-known planet, and it doesn't really has a circular orbit, and so I don't think that would qualify as Planet X. Planet X is very much a hidden object in our solar system, which even astronomers have had a very hard time finding because of all the debris that was left in orbit around it after the impact event that left Earth shattered and moved to a new location closer to the sun. And so Planet X will not be visible to normal telescopes. They could probably only look at gravitational influences. So long and short to Jupiter, no. That's a well-known star, well-known planet that would not qualify as a Planet X type object.
Richard Brower says, Doug, are there any actual pictures of Planet X?
I don't know. I haven't seen any yet. All I know is that the latest information on its location is somewhere west of the horns or the face of the constellation of Taurus.
Well, I got a picture.
What's happening is that I actually saw that on the app's Star Walk 2, which is interesting because I predicted that in my book on chapter 7, that Jesus actually encoded the location of Planet X, or his sign in the heavens, whether it's Planet X or something else, that will appear somewhere west of the face of the constellation of Taurus. I figured that out by when he said in Revelation 2 and 3, I think it is, that he's talking about the 7 churches, which are also 7 stars in the sky. The 7 churches are located in northwest Turkey, which was in ancient times was associated with the constellation of Taurus. And so as a result, in northwestern Turkey, Well, they probably located those churches there because they were trying to mirror the stars in the sky as being in the constellation of Taurus. And so, what Jesus was saying is the constellation of Taurus has a group of stars called the Hyades, which is in the face of the bull, the same location as in Turkey. And I think what he's saying is, just as these churches are on the earth in the sky, nearby those churches in the sky, I will make my appearance. And I think actually what he's saying is he'll make his appearance west of the Hyades in the face of the bull, Taurus, probably around where the island of Patmos. So the island of Patmos was a marker in the sky on the earth, which correlates to a marker in the sky as to where Jesus will return in the second coming, which is west of the face of Taurus. Or on the earth, it's west of northwestern Turkey and an island of Patmos just off the coast.
All right.
So it'll appear just west of the face.
All right. This question came in. It says, is Planet X a planet or a smaller companion to our sun?
Planet X is an actual planet. I don't know if it's a companion. It depends really on how it's composed. I mean, if you think it formed along the same time at the same time in like a binary sun system, then it would be a companion. But if it was captured, which it most likely was, then it would not be. It looks like it was captured because the outer planets, Uranus and Neptune, show strong evidence of having gravitational interactions with some kind of object that that penetrated our solar system from beneath. So this is the plane of the ecliptic. Something came in like this, and the planet Uranus was actually tilted over on its side as a result of this gravitational interaction. And they believe this and possibly interactions with planet Neptune actually pulled Planet X into our solar system into an orbit around the sun. That is the only thing that could have done that to Uranus and Neptune, both of which have significant characteristics. Uranus is also heavily tilted and has all kinds of weird stuff going on with its satellites. And they've also determined that Pluto was actually originally a satellite of Neptune before it was ripped out of its orbit by a massive object that passed close by Neptune. Wow. So Planet X had all those characteristics. The Planet X-sized object, 3 to 10 times the size of the Earth, or the mass, more accurately, entering the solar system from beneath. And then, as it became captured by the gravitational pull of the outer planets, it caused a great deal of damage to them, to the point where even some of their satellites were ripped out of orbit and given independent orbits like Pluto. And that's why they no longer call Pluto a planet, because they believe it was actually originally a satellite of Neptune, which was torn out of Neptunian orbit by Planet X.
Alrighty. Jim Shook asked this question. So, hey, Doug, have you read Tom Horn's book, The Wormwood Prophecy? If so, what do you think that rock is? Do you think that rock is Planet X?
No, that's just actually a regular asteroid. It might impact Earth, and it might be Wormwood. I think that Wormwood is actually part of the original Earth that was destroyed and thrown up into space. The original Earth, and possibly massive asteroids that struck during the time of the dinosaurs. A lot of material would have been pulverized and thrown up into space. A lot of dinosaurs would have been destroyed and turned into powdered dinosaur, basically. And so that material is still floating around in space. And a lot of the plant life, the material, wormwood is actually something called Artemisia absinthe, which is actually a naturally occurring plant which is used to create absinthe, which is a form of alcohol which has psychedelic characteristics. But I think what they're talking about with the wormwood is actually a piece of Earth that falls back down to Earth, having been super concentrated as a result of being pulverized and heavily burnt by the impact of an asteroid. And it was burned down and turned into powder form and concentrated. So when it falls back onto Earth, it reconstitutes with Earth's hydrosphere, all the water, and enters into the lakes and the rivers and poisons them with super concentrated absinthe. Wow. And so the people who are drinking the water of that time will actually be drinking basically instant absinthe, and it'll be super powerful psychedelic, and they'll basically go crazy because of the intense psychedelic rush this would give them. It would make them maybe both drunk and also very, very bad trip. I'm serious. That's what actually happened. Wow. This is basically chemical warfare, but that God is using on mankind at this time. He's literally driving them crazy so they can't defend themselves.
So is God gonna exact any kind of judgment with the Planet X? Is that any part of that?
Planet X, I don't know. It says the Earth will reel to and fro like a booth. And there's some other things like it mentions that the day of the Lord will be
Oh,
7 times brighter.
hold it. Like I read it to and fro like a drunkard. What did you say?
A booth.
A booth?
A booth is actually probably they were talking about. I think that's the King James. They were probably talking about when they had the annual festival commemorating Yahweh's battle against the dragon and his victory over the dragon, which is believed by many to have been taking place over time. And in the ancient Near East, it was believed that the Most High God of any pantheon, they always fought a dragon, defeated it, and created earth out of its head and heaven out of its tail. And that was true of the Hebrews, many believe. And so when they were talking about the booth, they were probably talking about maybe like possibly like a pantomime dragon that was tossed around back and forth while it's being defeated by a pantomime deity like God. That's what the ancient Mesopotamians used to do. They'd actually have these giant pantomime gods and goddesses, and the dragon would be represented just like a parade. So the ancient New Year festival called the Akitu festival in ancient Babylon, they would actually have a parade and a festival and singing and combat. It was basically a combination of New Year's Day and Christmas and the Super Bowl all in one. It was very all in one kind of New Year's thing. And the Hebrews did a similar thing. So they were probably talking about this kind of pantomime where they played out where the earth would be rocked back and forth by this disastrous event that happened not only in the beginning, but it also happened in the end times. When Planet X will probably class close enough to Earth to affect it gravitationally and possibly alter its orbit somewhat, and maybe even cause it to.
Is there an eclipse? Is there an eclipse this month, Doug?
I don't really follow eclipses. I don't know.
Okay. Azura says, are we ultimately looking at a twin star coming into our solar system or a twin solar system?
It's not even a star; it's a planet. It's a substantial planet with a large number of moons. It has about 11 different satellites, 4 of which are terrestrial and 7 of which are gaseous. And it also has another 24 lesser satellites. I was thinking that the appearance of the throne of God in Revelation 4, I think it is, or maybe it's 5. I keep forgetting. Is actually the description of Planet X as it appears in the heavens, because it's actually very similar to the appearance of Marduk. It's described in Enuma Elish, where he's also surrounded by 11 different, they're called winds. And so Jesus, the throne of God, is surrounded by these 11 winds, the 4 beasts and these 7 spirits of God that burn like candles, for a total of 11. So I think what that's saying there is actually talking about 11 total satellites. These huge satellites which surround Planet X, which are very fearsome in their own right. More than that, they also have additional 24 satellites plus those huge wings. You can imagine something like that coming right towards you. Not just this planet, the planet with the huge wings plus 11 massive satellites going right for you. In fact, when it comes close enough, it's so bright that it actually reflects the light of the sun, so it's 7 times hotter than usual.
Doug, I heard or I read that they may use the Space Force, Donald Trump's Space Force, to blow out this piece of crap Chinese piece of junk that's fallen out of the sky because they can't build a rocket. Is it possible that the Space Force could be used to blast Planet X if it gets too near? Or any of its
Space Force is being used to. Space Force is being built to fight against the army that Jesus is going to be bringing. They're building a force to defend Earth against Jesus' second coming.
Okay, are you going to be in that? Are you going to be in the Jesus Space Force?
Of course. Yeah, I'll be one of the fighting angels on Jesus' side.
You said you're near Chicago and outside West Side. Do you hear gunshots when you're up there?
No, I've never heard a gunshot in Chicago, but I think a train I was driving got shot once.
Okay.
It was a really loud noise, and it probably was like a pretty heavy round.
Okay. I'm not going to talk. I was going to ask something stupid like, is Lori Lightfoot a man or woman? We'll move on from that. Doreen says, Doug, is the coronavirus from Planet X? And a lot of people think that the Cooties 19 virus is an off-world construct. Is it just men going crazy down here, crazy scientists trying to kill everybody off, or is there aliens trying to clean this planet out so they can come down and take over?
It looks like it actually probably, yes. If the New World Order is apparently trying to reduce the population down to 500 million, and this would be one way to do it, is to spread out viruses. You saw what they did with this coronavirus, how devastating that was to our economies. And how people were so cowed by it. You can imagine a virus that was actually lethal, really lethal, how devastating that would be. And so they were probably figuring out how the coronavirus spread as an example of how to send the next one, which will be much more devastating, I'm guessing. And some have speculated that the vaccine is actually making us weaker, so that when the next virus comes around, we'll actually be weaker rather than stronger. So that's part of the reason I decided not to take it, and won't be taking it unless I have to.
Alrighty. Well, I can see this video is going to be banned from YouTube. That's okay. I got 2 more weeks in level 1 YouTube violations before.
Really?
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I wear it like a badge of honor. I say, come on, you bunch of skinny jean wearing, latte drinking, Segway riding, vaping, tattooed, pink haired freaks. Come on with it. Man, them people didn't build this country. They don't know nothing. They get rid of the normal people that built this country. They're going to be sitting in piles of ashes like out there in San Francisco and whatnot. But hey, I heard that Venice Beach, the venerable Venice Beach, California is just a giant tent city with stabbings and lootings and burnings and stuff. I mean, hey, here's what I'm thinking, Doug. I don't want the Californicators fanning out across the country with their ideas, because now they're all mad, especially those rich people down there in Venice Beach. But so, I mean, there's a lot of things going on with the Cooties 19, and you're right about that. I think that the vaccine was rolled out so fast that herd immunity was not achieved. It shortcutted the natural order of things, and those people that got it just basically killed off their immune system. And when that variant comes by, they're going to get hit twice as hard, and they're going to have to come up with another vaccine. Of course, I wrote the script. Okay, tell me if this script rings true. Yeah. We've had a second variant, and it looks like it probably was caused because some people did not get vaccinated. These people need to be ordered into a compound immediately for vaccinations and re-education. And by the way, India has a massive Cooties 19 variant outbreak. But
yeah, I heard.
Isn't it strange? India loves Donald Trump. 100,000 people came out to see him and had miles-long parade. The entire city for miles was decorated and plastered with his pictures and flowers everywhere because they love freedom. And now they're paying a price. Is that my imagination, Doug, or is there some kind of connection going on here?
They're using that. I think you're right on target there. India is definitely a friend of ours, and we have very close ties and high levels in technology, especially. And so it would make perfect sense for the New World Order, with basically radical leftists and hyper-socialists, to try to discipline them and bring them back in line with the New World Order's agenda.
If Cooties 19 is designed to depopulate, our Bear Report, he was talking about Mother's Day, and the first mother I thought about was Bill Gates. But I noticed his marriage has got depopulated from 2 to 1. Right. So how I got that in there, Doug? Only I could do that. Only I could make that kind of connection. Nobody else would even think about that. All right, so here you go. Kath asks, when will the asteroids arrive?
The asteroids are probably already arriving. We see an increase in asteroid activity around the world. The closer Planet X comes, the more it will become active, and it'll become almost like daily rain once it's coming towards its closest point. There'll be lots and lots of material falling all over the Earth, and so you see, for example, in the sixth seal, there's just rocks falling all over the world, and it'll become a common occurrence. So the closer Planet X come, the more you'll have asteroidal and common material passing by or even striking the Earth. Well,
that's interesting, Doug. I was just thinking, is it Revelations where it says that in the end times they will cry out for the rocks to fall on them? And here you go, you got asteroids. So I guess their wish is God's command, and the rocks will fall on these people.
Yeah, it probably is so bad at that point that they'd rather be killed by the rocks than endure the pain of existence.
All right, and now we have this question here. Is there a mathematical equation that can determine the arrival of Planet X, or at least within a year time frame? If so or not, can you give your prediction on its arrival?
I can't predict its second coming or its return. You can index it based on the temple's rebuilding. When the temple starts being rebuilt, that's when the tribulation period starts. You have that 7-year treaty signed. Planet X will probably return right around the middle of the tribulation period. At least it'll become visible from Earth. It's already creeping up on us now. And if it is what I think it is, my theory is that it actually is the end times is kind of all about Planet X, actually. Jesus being first, but Planet X is second, because it's the primary weapon God will use to judge the earth. And so it's kind of literally like a war of the world. It's almost like the Death Star in Star Wars, which in my opinion was actually written and filmed purposely to train people to fight against the second coming of Christ and this big planet which is coming with him. And so what is actually happening is, in the Star Wars mythology, everything is reversed. The rebels are the good guys, and the bad guys are Jesus, God the Father and God the Son. So God the Father is portrayed by this evil emperor, and God the Son is portrayed as Darth Vader, as this awful person. And so they're portraying it as the bad guys are coming from outer space in their big planet, which is capable of destroying the Earth with this huge weapon. And so Planet X might actually pass close enough to Earth to discharge an electrical bolt between the two planets, which is what they are warning about. It might actually form what is called a plasma torch, which is electrical a plasma passing between the two poles of the planets, north and south, which might be what's referred to when they say the angels come down with their sickles to reap the harvest of the earth. There's going to be what appear to be these giant sickles passing from the poles of Planet X and Earth, if Planet X comes close enough to do that. In which case, I would explain what the two sickles are. They're actually this plasma discharge going between the two planets as they pass by. And probably what will happen is the negative plasma arc will draw those who are to be resurrected, and the positive plasma arc will destroy those who God doesn't want. And so that's why they have two angels with two sickles, one which harvests the earth and brings up the believers, which is the resurrection, and the second one uses it to destroy those who destroyed the earth and his people. And so that makes sense. If you have a negative and a positive arc of electrons, a huge amount of energy passing between these two planets, anything that got in between in the way of the positive charge would be just instantly evaporated. And so I think that's what's going to happen. That's one of the way God will judge the earth, is he'll use this plasma charge between the two planets to literally erase huge amounts of people, probably most likely the armies that are gathered at Armageddon.
They're going to use a plasma charge to get rid of people?
Yeah, well, if a planet did pass by Earth, it would actually discharge electricity.
Sound like
that plasma is actually passing between the poles.
They get vaporized.
It would destroy everything else, right? And
they're going to get vaporized. What you're saying? Do you think the vaccine is any kind of code? Because people say that it changes your DNA, your cell structure, maybe makes you less human. Get terms like nanobots and stuff like that going on. In fact, some military guy said that he was injected with nanobots, and he said it was multiplying inside of him and creating a new him. I don't know who said that. I heard it, but I think I need to get that guy on the show. So there's a lot of stuff going on with that. But if we are marked, and I'm sort of an internal mark of what makes us human, our DNA structure, are we going to get blocked at the gates of heaven?
The gates of heaven won't be blocked because we'll be transformed into a spiritual form. Part of the reason that Jesus is going to resurrect us is because he knows, because of this warfare, this genetic warfare that's been going on since the beginning between the seeds of the woman and the seed of the serpent. The serpent always wins because it's so much easier to corrupt than it is to cleanse. And so, like it was in the days of Noah, Satan's approach to using genetic warfare by corrupting mankind genetically eventually ended up winning, because it was easier to not only create genetically modified beings like giants. Those giants would win in wars against normal Homo sapiens most of the time. And it also says in Genesis 6 that the giants took as many wives as they wished, meaning they propagated with many different women and spread their seed everywhere that way. And so they multiplied much more rapidly than Homo sapiens, because Homo sapiens was restricted to a monogamous marriage. They were able to make warfare. They were able to steal and kill because they didn't have the laws that were restricting Homo sapiens, like the laws of God. And so that eventually they attrited down Homo sapiens, mankind, down to the point where there's only 8 people left. And those are the ones who went into the ark. And then God sent the flood to destroy the giants and all of their works, which, by the way, were not only genetic modification of people, but also of animals and of plants, exactly the way we're seeing things now. And so God had to wipe out everything because it had become corrupted and could not be reused.
Well,
because
does the
materials
vaccine
had been modified so much.
does the vaccine corrupt humans in the order of pre-Noah flood?
Yes, we're seeing the beginning of the pre-Noah flood, Nephilim type stuff. This is what it is. We are being modified. We're being prepared for a final modification, which will turn mankind into a slave race of cyborgs that'll be controlled by a central computer.
Wow. I guess I wonder if the modification includes Joe Biden. I wonder if his curly leg hairs turn into straight leg hairs. All right, let's get to this question here from Geo. It says, Doug, will Planet X cause a pole shift? If so, what will happen if it does?
A pole shift, maybe, if it passes close enough to do that electrical discharge in the plasma I mentioned. It might actually cause the magnetic poles to flip. It might actually cause the actual physical poles to flip too, in which case everything would be upside down. We don't actually know how the Earth originally formed. We've actually flipped maybe several times.
Wait. Did I say, I wonder if Joe Biden's curly leg hairs would turn straight? I can't even believe I said that. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Edge, man.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, but it just hit me. I just can't believe I said that.
Yeah, he only gets straight when he's near children in the pool. So.
Whoa. Oh, man.
That's what he said.
Whoa. Okay, hey, how about this? Max says, are aliens arriving on Earth? Now, man, there's a lot of disclosure stuff going on. You got the Tic Tac videos. You've got the Space Force coming out. You've got all kind of stuff. I mean, there's alien visitations everywhere. Skinwalker Ranch is proof of that.
Right.
They're not on this Planet X, are they? Are they hiding behind it? Is there an invasion force behind Planet X?
It's possible that the original Revelation 12 event was a battle between two different extraterrestrial races. I don't think they were evolved. I think they were created. Probably a humanoid race or maybe an angelic race fighting against a physical race, maybe the reptilians. It's probably an angelic race of spirits versus reptilian race made of flesh. And the reptilian race tried to take over, usurp the throne of God, and they were defeated and they were cast out. And so they were thrown down to Earth and possibly other planets such as Mars, which might also be one of their bases, by the way.
Whoa.
I talk about that in a second if you want.
Yeah.
But basically, in the Revelation 12 event, this is basically might be a space war between two different types of beings, one spiritual and one physical. And the spiritual one won, and the reptilian physical ones were cast down into to other planets, and they're always trying to get back to Planet X to take it over, and in fact, maybe trying to do it right now. Yeah.
In fact, I think I actually have a picture of a Planet X inhabitant. Let me see if I can pull him up. This is supposedly taken on Planet X of an inhabitant. Let's take a look.
The Gorn.
So there, it looks to me like this guy's on Planet X, Doug. So, I mean, I don't know if it's a barren wasteland or a bunch of people coming down here to try to get us, but we got to watch out for that. All right, here's another question for you. It says, when did Planet X last pass through our solar system?
2,000 years ago when it appeared as the Star of Bethlehem. Prior to that, it appeared as a star that heralded the birth of Abraham around 2000 BC. Also around that time, the Sumerian civilization was destroyed by an asteroid. I figured that out when there was actually, I read an article, I think it was Scientific American or something, where they found in the 1980s there was an asteroid crater in southeastern Iraq, which was ancient Babylon and Sumer. And it was such a large crater that an asteroid apparently had hit that area and blew away all of ancient Sumer, and particularly the city of Ur, which was the great capital of Sumer. And it explains why they, around 2000 BC, probably not long after Abraham was brought out of Sumer, he actually was brought out of Ur of the Chaldees, the same city that was destroyed by fire from heaven in the Mesopotamian text. The Sumerians have these lamentation texts where they talk about how their god Enlil appeared in heaven and threw down like fire on top of them and destroyed the city of Ur and much of Sumer. My theory, I talk about this in chapter 6 in my book on Planet X, is that they actually the event that happened that destroyed Ur and thank you, Planet X, the sign of the Son of Man and the end of the age, which you can see at www.planet-x.net. info.
Mhm.
The book of Job actually recalls the same events where both the Sumerians and also Job and his children were also destroyed by the same asteroid strike, because the events described in the lamentation text of ancient Sumer describe the similar event where you have of fire burning everything. Actually, they call it a wind from the wilderness in Job. And the same situation happened in ancient Sumers, or like this massive wind, very powerful wind, which would correspond to the blast wave of the asteroid, after which followed heat like fire, and then flooding. Same thing happened in the same order in the book of Job. That explains why everything was blown down when the great wind, the blast wave from the asteroid, struck Job's house and buried all of his children. That's what that was. It was a blast wave from an asteroid impact. And then the fire from the heat burned everything that was left. And then since the asteroid struck in the marshlands of southeastern Iraq, where there's a lot of water, a lot of that water was thrown up and came down in massive flooding rains, which basically flooded out everything else. And so my chapter 6 of my book, I make these parallels saying that these are both the same events happening from two different perspectives. One was Job was from the monotheistic Hebrew perspective, and the lamentation text saw from the polytheistic perspective. That is to say, they believe the gods in heaven, particularly Elwell, which was the sky god that replaced Anu, the previous being, which corresponds to planet X. Elwell is the same, was considered to be a star in the sky, or actually a planet, as was Anu, who preceded him, and both of them, I believe by some, to actually correspond to planet X. And so my theory is that planet X would have entered into the solar system around 2000 BC, scattered around a lot of asteroids, and one of those struck ancient Sumer, destroying ancient Sumer, and also Job and a number of other people. Not long after that, after Abraham left Ur of the Chaldees, which he left right before this impact probably, if he had stayed there, he would have been killed by it. Lot was also in Sodom, and Sodom, if he had not been brought out of Sodom, he would have been destroyed by the asteroid material that struck Sodom. And so we have a lot of asteroidal and small debris impacts. So they believe that Sodom and Gomorrah were actually destroyed by
I'll tell you
balls of sulfur. Good.
Yeah, no, I was going to say Pete Buttigieg's, and he's still mad about his ancestors about that. We got this question here. It says, do you have any information on the elitist elect building inner Earth fortifications for when all this goes down?
I don't have any special information on that, but you can be assured that they are.
All right. Will Mars come close to Earth again?
Mars will never come close to Earth again unless it's affected by a Planet X type object. So it's in a fixed circular orbit, which will probably never change.
So Planet X isn't going to have any gravitational pull on Mars?
If it passes near Mars, it might significantly affect it. It might even throw it out of the solar system if it's close enough. It could, if it comes close enough to a terrestrial object or a planet that's relatively small, it could actually throw it out of the solar system or just into the sun.
Now, do you call it Nibiru or Nibiru? I hear all the time on the internet.
It's Nibiru, which means planet of the crossing.
Nibiru?
Yeah, I don't really use the term, but that's how it's pronounced.
Okay.
It's 3 letters. It's 3 like siligrams, or whatever they're calling it.
Yeah, well, see,
Nibiru.
Okay. Well, I like Nibiru because it kind of like rolls. Nibiru.
You can call it Nibiru if you want.
Okay, thanks, man. Will they add the DNA from the fallen angels into human people? Is that what they're doing, Doug?
They've been doing it the entire time. They've been modifying it the entire time. There's never been a time when they haven't been doing it. There are periods where they are upping the modification. Like, for example, during the time of Abraham, it was believed that the fallen angels were coming down to interbreeding with mankind. Giants were in the earth, as it says in the Bible. Giants were on the earth in those times before the flood and also afterwards. Right. It was called in the Bible from Genesis 12 onwards, the iniquity of the Amorites. The Amorites were people who invaded ancient Canaan and took over the region and forced the local peoples to abandon their god, whose name was El, and had they instead took upon the worship of Baal and Asherah. That's where the Baal and Asherah came from. They were from the Amorites. And the Amorites were also interbreeding with fallen angels, so that they were no longer truly human. Their offspring were actually what we would call the giants. genetically modified peoples who were no longer truly human. And so when God said we have to go into Canaan and destroy everyone there, he wasn't saying commit genocide on humanity. He was saying commit genocide on these alien hybrids, because these people were no longer human and were actually a threat to the earth, because as giants, they were designed specifically to destroy Homo sapiens and wipe us all out. That was their purpose. And so it was either them or it was us. And so God decided, well, I'm not going to send another flood, so we'll just send the Israelites in to wipe out this particular group, and then we won't have to worry about the spread of the giants again. Otherwise, we'll have to send another flood or maybe a fire, or maybe just give up and start a new planet.
I was speculating earlier that Kamala Harris may have come from one of those ancient tribes, maybe the Kamalakites. Just saying. She probably did the whole... No, never mind. No, Daniel.
Don't go there.
Don't go. Well, wait a minute. That was kind of good. I got a good one lined up for that one. All right, here we go. Now, you said earlier in the first hour, Doug, that you had a very specific dream or a vision. Was it a dream or a vision?
It was a vision. It was a waking dream, like a vision. I could see it. I think what had happened was, it was very similar to one of Daniel's, the other Daniel, the older one of his visions. And I'm not saying a prophet. I'm just telling you this is what I saw. It didn't tell me anything about the future. It was telling me about me and now. I've been unable to sleep for 3 days. I had this kind of weird flu thing, maybe like a COVID-18 or something. I don't know what it was. This was March of 2019. And I could not sleep for 3 days. My heart was racing. And I was taking flu medicine and all kinds of stuff. And on the third day, the morning, I had to take off from work because I was just dying. And I was literally just felt like I was dying. And I was sitting in my easy chair in my front room, and just totally out of it. I was in this weird dream state where I was like not asleep, not awake. And off to my left, there came this, looked like a television screen, this long, snaky, like cord. And what appeared on there was too weird to tell on here, but basically I saw demons who were threatening me and saying this something wicked this way comes, basically. So I knew something bad was happening. Someone was casting very powerful spells, and they were specifically targeting me, some of them, because they sensed, I think the area I live in might be of special significance. And so they were trying to spiritually take over this area and boot me out. They failed to do so because my God is greater. But the threat is still there, and there's still a problem in this area, the area I live. It's west of Chicago. I won't tell you exactly where. But I think this is a spiritually and strategically significant area I live in, which may become a battleground for powerful forces in the end times.
Well, the reason I want to go back to that, because I feel like while we have a Planet X coming through here, you got asteroids, all these things we're talking about are celestial objects. But then I would think as we get closer to catastrophic events, that spiritual events would start to manifest more than what they do, and in more bolder terms. Yes. Maybe we'll see somebody literally raise the dead, or see open visions and various things. I think that on the measure, for instance, in the movie Armageddon with Bruce Willis, there's the big asteroid, but then there's the smaller parts of it that are hitting Earth first, right? So I'm thinking as this giant planet comes in, and these parts of it, the asteroid belt or whatever is going to hit us before that, I'm thinking, wouldn't say if Jesus is returning, he say in spiritual terms, he would be the asteroid, but the hits would be these major spiritual impacts in people's lives, maybe directing them where to go, what to do, maybe special powers, spiritual. This is, you see where I'm going with this? So yes. I wanted to kind of infuse that more into the broadcast, because I mean, my personal belief is that's going to happen, that perhaps maybe there's a nuke going off and a certain group of people are going to walk right through it, and they won't have the smell of nuclear blast on them. You know, I'm going with that. So if you were given this sort of warning, do you think that others have been getting smaller doses of these sort of meteor impacts, spiritual meteor impacts in their life? Maybe they need to recognize them, that they may be getting similar messages?
God will send them messages when the time is appropriate. I was told in my mind, in my heart, that what I was experiencing was a microcosm of what the church will soon experience. So basically, I'm like a lead element, like a scout who sees what's happening first. And since I'm more aggressive than most spiritually, I was hit the hardest. What I was told was that I was going to get hit the hardest. I was going to take the most damage. But I'm like a shield of the church. I'm the first defense. I'm one of the first lines of defense. And people like me too. And so I was like God's shield. He was using to protect the church. And so I got a heavy hit so that the church was not damaged, very little or at all. Mm-hmm. But I think the next wave will be even heavier. I don't know if we'll be able to hold them off myself, people like me. And so the church will be more affected. And you'll have what you're seeing, visions like that. Think of me as like the Enterprise with my shields being attacked by the Borg. It's just too much for me to handle.
Or in celestial.
But afterwards, once they get past me, Earth is at risk, and then I'll start really feeling it.
Or in planetary terms, sort of like the moon, which just happens to be perfectly positioned to take a whole lot of meteor strikes that have not reached Earth because the moon's been taking them. So planetarily speaking, you're like a moon for the church, taking some serious hits.
Yes, right.
How
that's
you
a
had
good
like,
analogy, and that's what it is for too. It's actually designed to absorb asteroid impacts.
Okay,
which
now,
there are quite a few.
Now the moon is clearly strategically placed there to defend the Earth. So that means, based on this, my analogy here, that you have been strategically placed within the church. What do you think that is? Why are you placed in this position?
When we moved here when I was a kid, I actually bought my parents' house from them and fixing it up. And ever since, I wondered, there were nicer places to live, but this house, we came here for some reason. I never understood why, but now I see why. I think it's, to use a Ghostbusters term, we're right in the middle of Spook Central there. I mean, this is spiritually significant area that we didn't even know it. And we are maybe kind of the priests and holders of the traditions of this area, because the way my walk went, it was like a door opened to here and then everything behind it shut. I had to come back here to where I spent most of my childhood to help defend it against something that was coming, something wicked this way comes. And I was not wrong. There's some bad people moving into this area over the last few years. And I think it's an area where the left is trying to take over and turn it into a kind of a model left-wing area.
Now, honestly, Doug, you're kind of looking like a monk. You got a little monkish going on there. You got the shirt there, makes you look like a Knights Templar. So what's going on? What's going on with Doug?
He's actually a Jedi robe.
I mean, I like the look, man. I think that'd been better. You should have wore that the whole show, man. That looks great.
I think.
Yeah, yeah. There you go. I am your father.
More mysterious.
Well,
that's usually a regular one. The Jedi robe.
What's going on? What's going on with you?
Well, I'm starting a new monastic order. I'm calling it Ordo Sacra Stella, which means Order of the Sacred Star. And it's basically kind of a lay monastic tradition where we kind of go out and pray and get away from society and go into the wilderness and reflect on the Bible and traditions, and see how society is affecting us, and preparing the way for Christ's second coming in a sense, where we take the Bible seriously and try to encourage people to move away from the cities, move into the wilderness, and meet with God in a real way. That's kind of where I'm going. And the term Order of the Sacra Stella means Order of the Sacred Star. It means we're looking for the sign of his second coming, which I think is Planet X. And that's kind of the root of our study. And the return of Christ and the second coming is basically the main focus of the order.
Seemed like a few years ago there was a movement to prepare people to move to a certain place in Israel that people said was, I don't know, was Zion? Is it like a rock city? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Petra?
Yeah, Petra.
I recommend not going to Petra. That would be a death trap.
I was going to say, it seemed like it was a movement. Now, have they switched from Petra to, say, the Ozarks?
Yeah, I think the Ozarks, people have speculated the Ark of the Covenant was actually hidden there somewhere, which is not impossible. It's possible that they came all the way across and hid it here because it's much safer here than it would be in the ancient.
Well, be careful down
history.
there. Be careful down there. I was in the Arks not too long ago and got into it with some Bigfoot activity down there. And now they must feel safe too because nobody can bother them. All right, here we go. By the way, Jimmy says, Doug, keep us updated when you move to the Ozarks, preferably South Central Missouri.
Why not? Why South Central?
Jimmy?
Is it near Branson?
Yeah, Jimmy in live chat. Why South Central Missouri? Now, he may live there. I don't know. All right. Did Planet X bring in the flood that brought about Noah's Ark?
Probably did, actually. The flood was probably caused by asteroidal activity. When it says the fountains of the deep opened up, most of the Earth's mantle is actually made up of what are called hydrous minerals, which are minerals which are partly composed of water. Mm-hmm. Mainly called olivine and pyroxene. And when an asteroid strikes the Earth, it compresses the mantle rocks, and it forces the water out of those rocks. And they have nowhere to go but up, so you have these gigantic fountains going from underneath the mantle and through the crust up above the Earth and possibly into space, mm-hmm. depending on how much pressure is exerted. And so when you have, probably that's what caused the fountains of the deep to open up, was with massive asteroid impact. Also, if an asteroid struck the Earth at an angle, it would probably cause the Earth's crust to dislodge, like I mentioned earlier, and would actually cause the Earth's oceans to slosh over their normal boundaries. So you'd have gigantic waves flooding entire continents, or parts of them, because of that. And so one asteroid strike could literally flood the entire Earth immediately with waves, or with massive amounts of water gushing out from Earth's mantle, or possibly even striking in the ocean itself and sending so much water up in the atmosphere that everything around it is flooded for basically the entire hemisphere. And so one good-sized asteroid could have done it. Many asteroids would have made it for sure. Mm-hmm. Probably my theory is Noah was actually probably originally, his ark was probably originally located in the eastern Mediterranean basin. The Mediterranean basin, or the Mediterranean Sea, was actually a dry land area, which was protected from water from the Atlantic Ocean by what was called the Atlantic Wall. It was believed by scientists who have studied this area that there was a massive collapse of the Atlantic Wall, and the entire Mediterranean basin was filled in with water. Mm-hmm. That's why it's a sea now instead of land. But in ancient times, the basin was actually dry. And there's actually megaliths all over the floor, all around the floor of the Mediterranean, proving that the Mediterranean basin was in fact once above water. And probably what happened, probably Noah's, the ark was caught in that massive wave of the Atlantic Wall collapsing, the wave that caused all the ancient world to basically be, on the Mediterranean, to be drowned. And he probably rode that wave up to what is now Mount Ararat. Probably the Garden of Eden was probably located in the eastern Mediterranean also. Mm-hmm. That's buried now. But it would make sense because the Tigris and Euphrates, they point in that direction. The Nile also points in that direction. Mm-hmm. There's also a river, I think, near Sinai Peninsula that points in that direction also. Mm-hmm. So the original Garden of Eden was probably north of the Delta of Egypt somewhere, somewhere between there and Phoenicia. And so probably that entire ancient civilization, which might have been higher than either Egypt or Phoenicia or any ancient civilization, was totally destroyed by this giant wave and completely buried.
Somebody in the live chat said that cheap piece of crap Chinese rockets head into the Mediterranean. Interesting. Is Louisville, Kentucky becoming a key for evil operations? Now, Doug, I'm just outside of Indianapolis. I like to call India no place. Yeah. But from a spiritual point of view, looking at geographical bastions of evil, it is in Diana-polis. That means in Diana, the goddess city. Mm-hmm. The city of Diana, which of course is a mythological Greek goddess, but who knows if they're really mythological or real entities of demons masquerading as these people, probably some kind of hideous creature. So I may be near one of these epicenters of evil. And then of course we got Louisville, and they keep breaking out in riots. Is that another hot spot?
Indianapolis, you're right. It is a major Masonic center, and they named it after Diana. So you're right on target there. They're probably going to be, wherever you have a pre-Masonic stronghold, you're going to have a centralization of New World Order type power. So you're on target there. we've known about this for decades. I mean, we've been studying. You and I have been on the fringe for what, since 1998 or something?
Yeah, long time.
I've been here since 98. You've been there maybe shortly afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
When did your show start? Was it like 2000?
2004.
2004. Okay, so I'm more older and fringier than you are. So.
Well, look at that. And I see that's what you can tell because you got the monk coat and I don't.
You gotta be fringy to wear the monk outfit, especially a Jedi monk outfit. So yeah, it's pretty clear that the New World Order is making their move. They got a plan. It's being executed. And if you're not ready for it, you're going to become their slave or maybe be dead. And so don't assume everything is okay because it's definitely not. They're making their move and you got to be ready for it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, a lot of scary stuff tonight. You got planetoids coming at us. You got evil cities rising up, unleashing the Black Awakening. You got Lori Lightfoot running crazy up there with those big, dark, sunken eyeballs. You got Joe Biden out there. He's always saying, I'm going to get in trouble. I guess he's talking about he's going to get in trouble with his masters. I don't know. I thought he was leader of the free world, but evidently somebody's master him because he's always worried about getting in trouble. How do you like that for a leader? How do you like that for a leader? I might get in trouble. What? What's the matter with you? That's what I want to say. But anyway, so we got all this stuff. It's a little bit dark, kind of about as dark as Planet X. Can you bring any hope to this message?
Well, the hope is Jesus Christ and salvation by Jesus. He's the only way out of the situation. The door is closing on if you'll be able to be saved. So you need to reconsider, maybe my hedonistic lifestyle wasn't the best choice. Maybe I should take Christianity more seriously and look at my spiritual life rather than just my physical. Mm-hmm. Stop worrying about accumulating things and worry about accumulating treasures in heaven by allowing the Spirit of God, the Holy Spirit, to work through you to accomplish good deeds, to help people, to study the times and understand what's going on, be a good watchman on the wall and warn people, hey, this is not okay. We have to be careful and maybe be prepared to leave the cities and even leave civilization in order to survive what's coming. Now, I'm not saying pack up your bags and just move to a cave somewhere in the Ozarks. I'm saying put together a vacation home with some friends, a little community where you can go to and with your friends and family and kids. Just go out there and get used to the country life because you might have to, in some time in the near future, do that in order to survive. Mm-hmm. So if you do that, you'll already be prepared, and all you have to do is take that one last journey out of civilization and watch it collapse from the comfort of your cabin.
Now you were kind of hedging on the demon that came out of your TV on a string thing there. You said it was not fit for the viewing public here.
It didn't come out of my TV. It was like a TV-shaped image.
Okay, like a TV image, but you said it was rude or gross enough or crazy enough that
it's just weird. It's difficult to describe on TV. It was very strange. I can tell you about the one of them.
Okay, good.
One of them appeared. Actually, I can tell you a couple of things. I can tell you one thing. One of them looked like a frog-like being that was not unlike Jar Jar Binks, and another one was basically the Rolling Stones' lips, but on the end of a very, very long snake-like body. And it occurred to me when I saw him, I just called him the mouth, was that it was basically the Rolling Stones' lips with a really huge lolling tongue, and he said he was going to devour me. Okay, and so I realized later when I was reading the Bible that this was actually the demon called the devourer. And what he does is God sends the devourer to judge people and civilizations by stealing away the fertility of the land, by devouring it from beneath. It actually says in one of the later prophets that when God sends the devourer, what he does is this demon takes all this, natural energy away from the plants and the animals and people and devours it, and the crops will die due to lack of energy, and also calves will be stillborn, and also humans. And so that was one of the beings I saw, and I managed to fight him off. It wasn't. It was interesting because we had a kind of a mutual respect. We knew each other. We're both very powerful, so I just kind of backed off and realized who I was. And also, the second one was the Jar Jar Binks character. It was actually interesting because it was like he was bringing this evil energy out of the earth and spreading it all over northern Illinois. And it just like he was preparing the way for an invasion of powerful spiritual forces, like he was seeding the land. And that's why I think this area is being prepared for a major influx of evil by powerful occult forces, is because that is what I think he was preparing it for. And there was, of course, the third vision of the evil monks who were drinking blood, probably from aborted children, because I had a feeling they were also eating bits of aborted baby. I'm sorry to have to say that. And cursing my name while they were doing it. They were cursing me by name. And so I felt that for that reason and others, that I'm actually kind of a guardian of this area. And they saw me as kind of in the way. And so they were trying to destroy me, and are still doing so to this day.
Now, do you, in your area, do you do walkabouts, prayer abouts, I guess?
I should start doing it. I did a drive about today just to do reconnoiter the area. I'm also a member of the association here, so I help manage the area. I don't like to do a lot of spiritual things because we live in an area which is very liberal.
Yeah.
And people aren't very religious, and so they don't like that. But I do what I can.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to see if we can crank down a little bit to why this such a manifestation occurred in your house. Have you had any other manifestations like that since?
No. I had the feeling that was it.
And I tried to pin you down earlier. Is we discussed the moon analogy that you're taking hits from outside, but what's Doug Elwell? I mean, is your prayer? You have a heavy duty prayer life. Aren't you? Wouldn't that mean that you somewhere along the line you're inflicting damage on the enemy? They don't like it.
I'm inflicting damage on an enemy like a well-fortified castle that they're trying to storm. And so I'm not attacking them. I'm defending against them with rocks and molten.
But they came at you. What you're saying is they came at you pretty heavy.
It was a very powerful attack. It was unusual. I've been spiritually attacked before, but this was big. I mean, they threw everything they had at me. It was with the kitchen sink, and I managed to survive it. But it took a heavy toll. I was very sick for a while, and it really hurt me physically and emotionally. Jesus saved it from me. He basically, protected me from the worst of it. But I had a feeling that it was a test for me to see if I could handle powerful attacks like that.
Oh, I got you. Overbuilt Automotive says, Doug, who do you think the two witnesses will be?
I don't know.
You think Enoch would be one?
Probably Moses and Elijah returned. What happened is Moses and Elijah. By the way, not many people understand this, but when Jesus appeared with Moses and Elijah on the Mount of Transfiguration, right before that, what he had said was, "There are those among us who will never taste death." And then right after that, he shows up with Moses and Elijah right next to him on the mount. What not many people understand was the people he was talking about who will not taste death were probably Moses and Elijah, because I think they've been with him the entire time as his invisible guards. And so Elijah never died, and so he was probably hanging out with Jesus and walking around with him invisibly, protecting him from who knows what while he could do his ministry. I think maybe Moses was also there too. It might be that he was actually taken up or maybe resurrected. He never died either, but it might be that he was resurrected rather than directly translated, because Moses is a very similar pairing with Elijah. And some people believe that he was actually resurrected later and continues to live to this day. And so these two will come down to the earth and become visible, and they will have the ability to fight off all of our forces using probably very powerful technology or spiritual technology or something. And that will allow them to survive even the worst attacks that mankind can do.
Now, Enoch didn't die either, did he?
Enoch was taken up just like Elijah was. He was, after 365 years of life, he was taken up, and he never returned. Some people think that the two witnesses are Enoch and Elijah, but I think they were Moses, mainly because in Malachi, in the last chapter of Malachi, Moses and Elijah are paired up as kind of a pair. And we see this pairing of beings throughout salvation history. When God came down to visit Abraham, he had a pair of angels or angelic beings with him. Those are probably Moses and Elijah too, or the pre-incarnate Moses and Elijah, possibly. Who knows exactly? But when Jesus comes down, or God comes down, We had the pre-incarnate Christ, we had the pre-incarnate Moses, and the pre-incarnate Elijah probably along with him. And so these two might be a pairing that go along with Jesus wherever he goes. Just like they are the two powerful spirits on the Ark of the Covenant, that's the two cherubim. These are those two powerful angels. So two cherubim on the top of the Ark of the Covenant represent two powerful beings who are two of the most powerful beings in the universe. One represents, in my opinion, righteousness, and the other represents judgment. Elijah is righteousness and Moses judgment. And so that pairing of powerful angels, that spirit became flesh in Moses and Elijah, just as a powerful spirit came in flesh, the Son of God came in flesh as a man. So these two became born into flesh as well, and they lived lives on earth, perhaps as Moses and Elijah. Maybe John the Baptist was one of them. Who knows what's going on? Enoch. But basically, you have two very interesting and unusual characters who have risen above the typical herd. They have very weird and different characteristics, unusual capabilities, even for holy men, and their ability to transcend space and time and possibly move throughout time. Could be they're moving backwards and forwards in time to be with Jesus at various points in history. Who knows what's going on with those guys? I suspect they have in possession very powerful technology which will allow them to do practically anything. And I talk about this in my book, The Riddle of the Sphinx. Some of the materials, I believe is buried under the Sphinx is actually a very powerful supercomputer in the form of a sapphire stone, which contains all knowledge inside of it, written using a laser. We have this technology now. It's called an optical hard drive. And optical hard drives can hold so much data that they can literally hold all knowledge, even by modern standards. So what I suspect is underneath the Sphinx in the Hall of Records, so-called, is actually these optical hard drives, which, worn on the head, will actually write data directly to your mind. And that's how the ancient gods of the ancient times were able to have godlike abilities and knowledge, is because they had these supercomputers that would do things for them and give them what looked like godlike abilities, but were actually only very high technology, which allowed them to do special things. And so the two witnesses will probably have these technologies with them and allow them to do amazing feats, including breathe fire, or more accurately, possibly shoot lasers and destroy anyone who tries to hurt them.
Oh, I see now the reason for your coat there. That seems like something that they would wear. So you're trying to blend in with them. I see.
Well, yeah, they'd be kind of monk-like. I don't think they'd be like Jedi, though.
Okay, well, we've been talking about a lot of things, but we're talking about this book written by you, Planet X, The Sign of the Son of Man and the End of the Age. Looks like it's got 7 chapters. Can you give us a real quick synopsis on each one of these 7 chapters, Doug?
Chapter 1 talks about the God's conflict with the dragon and the sea. It's basically, the whole book is designed to explain to people what the creation is all about, the concepts, the context of the ancient Near East, what the Bible is actually saying about the creation. And the context is that in the ancient Near East, the creation of the earth was described universally, and even in the Bible, as a conflict between some kind of heavenly sky god who appeared in the heavens as a star or a planet, and the earth, which was personified as a dragon. And so in this battle, this divine conflict, for example, in Enuma, which was the Babylonian epic, they described the conflict between the sky god and the dragon as a conflict between their god Marduk and a dragon named Tiamat. And in this battle, the dragon fought against Tiamat, defeated her, cut off her head and used it to form the earth. And it took the rest of her body to form what was called the hammered bracelet, or the Rachis, which was like a circle of rocks in heaven, which corresponds to the asteroid belt, according to the Sishan approach, which I agree with. And so that is the core concept of the ancient Near Eastern concept and biblical concept of the creation, as a result of a battle between two planets in heaven, basically, corresponding to a god, a sky god, and a dragon.
Okay, so that's chapter 1.
That's chapter 1. Right. Chapter 2 is about the ancient Eastern cosmos. I have to look that up. I forgot exactly what it was. Astronomical religions, yeah. It talks about how the astronomical religions of the ancient Near East, how they all worship the planets as gods. And so when you have to understand this, that the ancients saw everything as a manifestation of deity, and the planets were the highest manifestation. And so when they talk about things in the heavens, they're talking about gods. And so the ancient Near Eastern saw planets like Earth or this other planet, Planet X, Jupiter and Saturn, etc., as gods, which sometimes came into conflict with each other. And so when people look at these ancient Near Eastern texts, you're supposed to interpret the Bible in the context of these texts. And so they're not doing it. They're applying Western point of view on it, or Greek, which doesn't work. They need to think of it in terms of gods in the heavens battling each other for supremacy and conflicts and gods being killed and divided up.
So chapter 2 is about these gods?
It's about the gods and how the ancients studied astronomy and astrology and believed that the planets were gods. That's basically what chapter 2 is about.
Okay, chapter 3?
So chapter 1, God's conflict with the dragon in the sea. God is battling a dragon.
Okay.
Chapter 2, the planets were considered to be gods.
Okay.
And then you get to chapter 3, you talk about the Magi and talk about how they followed the star, which they believed was a god in heaven. And so when they followed the star, they were looking for the god in heaven, which would be born on earth. And they believed that this was the god, probably Ahura Mazda or Marduk or whatever, one of the gods they worshipped. They believed that Jesus was the incarnation of one of the high gods of the ancient pantheons. The Persians, the Magi were Persians, and the high god of the Persian pantheon was named Ahura Mazda. And he was also symbolized by this winged disc with a man sitting in the middle of that disc. And so they believe that this man in the middle, sitting in this disc with the wings and everything, similar to the one you showed earlier, they believed that that man had been born in flesh on earth as a living God. And they worshipped him as probably Ahura Mazda, not necessarily the God of the Bible. But they gave him the gifts of myrrh, frankincense, and gold, because that is what Jesus needed to accomplish his ministry. And so it was interesting that, and kind of an insult to the people at the time, the Israelites at the time, that they had no idea that God had been born. But these pagan idolaters, priests from ancient Persia, from where they had escaped, they knew all about it, and they knew exactly what he was and where to find it.
All right.
And so this is a slap in the face of these of the ancient
so that
priests
brings
of Israel, because they had no idea.
All right, that brings us to chapter 4.
Chapter 4 is talking about. Forgive me, it's been a while.
Okay.
Let's see. Went on high. That talks about a new Elish. That's the Sitchin interpretation. I go into the Zechariah Sitchin interpretation of how the planets were formed out of a solar nebula. What they're talking about in Enuma Elish, they say that in the beginning it was this vast watery mass, which surrounded the central deity, and it was named Apsu. And out of this vast mass of waters, the planets formed. That's actually a very good interpretation of how the planets actually formed, is because in the beginning, when our star, the sun, began to form, it would gradually collapse on itself by collective gravity. And as it began to collapse together, it began to spin. And from that spin became this huge mass of gas and dust, which spread out for many millions of miles as far as Pluto, or Neptune. And from that mass of disk, which was partly made of water, the planets formed. And so the Sumerians, to be translated according to modern science, they actually understood that the solar nebula, that the planets were formed out of this vast disk.
So
gas and dust.
Doug,
and so
they
understood that from
all right. So you go on to talk about the creation of the solar system, Planet X and the giant impact, man and the Tower of Babel, the Star of the Crossing, and a lot of good stuff in chapter 4. That brings us to chapter 5. In the beginning, the biblical creation material reinterpreted. What's a quick synopsis on that?
We'll go a quick one. Basically, that's reinterpretation of the Bible in the context of the first 4 chapters, especially in Enuma Elish translation. This is supposed to be thought of as a divine creation conflict, and I go through all the major passages in Isaiah, Job, and a few other places where they talk about the conflict of the creation as being kind of a conflict between God and the dragon. Psalm 74 being an obvious description, and also Isaiah 27:1, where he talks about God will return in the end times to fight Leviathan once more. And so that means he fought Leviathan in the beginning, will also fight him again in the end.
I guess if you're going to kill him, man, it's kind of like that movie with The Rock in it, Doom. He says, next time you kill a zombie, make sure he stays dead. So, so
That's right. Leviathan will rise again in the end
so
times.
somebody next time they kill Leviathan, somebody make sure he's dead. That brings us to chapter 6.
And chapter 6 is basically, I put in there, it's kind of out of sequence because it would naturally go from Leviathan, the end times, to the final chapter about the end times. But the information in Job is so important, and there's so much material in Job that I wanted to include it. There was so much creation material in Job, actually, and it corresponded so well with the name Elish, that I actually reinterpreted and actually literally reinterpreted a lot of the book of Job. And I reclassified it as not as wisdom literature, but as actually the Hebrew creation epic, which corresponded to the Babylonian creation epic. It treated the same material that the Babylonian creation epic did. Instead, it treated it in the format of a conversation between God and man, which was monotheistic, versus the Babylonian creation epic, which was polytheistic. But same material for two different perspectives.
Wow, a lot of good stuff. Chapter 7, Planet X, the sign of the Son of Man. This is the big one. Sign of the Son of Man and the end of the age. Basically, the subtitle of your book. What's going on with chapter 7?
So after having gone through all these preliminary chapters to get you contextualized, now you should be able to understand that what is actually happening. There's a planet going through in and out of our solar system every 2,000 years. It appeared at the Star of Bethlehem. It appeared as the sign that presaged the birth of Abraham. It appeared about 4,000 years to inaugurate the probably initiation of the Sumerian civilization. And they were obsessed with the star. In fact, their god Anu was actually symbolized by an 8-rayed star, and they called the Din Gir. And actually, all the letter Din Gir, which is the oldest letter in their alphabet, was so closely associated with a star and God. It symbolized both a star, God, and heaven. And so, from the beginning, star, God, and heaven was at the center of the major pantheons of the ancient world. It was carried on to Babylon, Assyria, Persia, and all the way into the biblical time of the Bible. Every single time, it was also always this 8-rayed star or this winged star that came by every once in a while and inaugurated new ages of mankind. And I believe the next age of mankind will be God himself will come down from heaven to earth and dwell amongst mankind. That's when Jesus returns. And he'll have the second coming. There'll be opposition, of course, and the forces of the earth don't want this to happen. And so what it says in the book of Revelation, this second coming, with this great sign in the sky described in Matthew 24:30, which is probably Planet X, is accompanied by some sort of an invasion fleet. So you're going to have some kind of a space battle where they're literally riding horses or literal chariots or actual spaceships is unclear. But I think that the Space Force you mentioned earlier is designed to fight against this oncoming Space Force.
So our own American Space Force is going to lead the battle against Jesus and his army?
America won't exist at that time. It'll be the beast system. America will be...
Okay, I understand. That by that time, Joe Biden has already turned over our United States military to the New World Order. I got you. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's basically God versus Satan.
Yeah.
God's army versus Satan's army. God's planet versus Satan's planet.
Or God versus Democrats, same thing. Doug, well, I appreciate you coming on the Edge broadcast. Can we have you on again sometime?
Absolutely. If you're brave enough to have me on, I would love to come on.
I don't think we've said enough here to get kicked off YouTube. I'll certainly let you know once their algorithm runs through this and they hear something about Cooties 19. See, I mask it. Their algorithm can't catch Cootie 19 because they get confused. YouTube ain't that smart. Okay, even those stupid people get confused. But now you've got a couple of things out there for us to be wondering about. One is where you move, when are you going to move? And you may not want to tell us where, but maybe a general thing. And then a confirmation. I'm expecting that if you do move, you're going to get some sort of confirmation. And if you get any more spiritual attacks. So there's several things we want to keep track of you on. And if that's being the case, you can just text me or email me. Keep the folks here updated until we get you back on the show again.
Okay, great. That won't be anytime soon, maybe the next 3 to 5 years.
Oh, okay.
If we are appearing near the tribulation, then probably sooner rather than later.
Or if you have any more demonic attacks coming at you, like you described, that might motivate you to move a little quicker.
That would be a sign.
You move a little bit quicker on there.
That's right.
Or, by the way, does your cape, does it have like deflector powers?
Unfortunately not. I probably have angels guarding me instead, so I don't need deflectors. But
okay. Well, Doug,
who knows what's actually happening.
All right, Doug. Well, I really appreciate you coming back on the show.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.